at the Chase Center. They're 11-6 in their last 17 games. And they're deep.
Look at the score, guys. It's 123-107 for the Warriors. I know the title of the video is How the Warriors Dismantled the Celtics, and this one regular season game may not matter as much when you immediately think of it, but when you take into account the context and magnitude of this game, it seems a lot more serious than it first appears to be. Let me show you what I mean. This game was a rematch of the finals, basically meaning it was a rematch of the best two teams from just last season. But let's get into the context of this game. For starters, the Warriors didn't have Andrew Wiggins playing because of injury. Wiggins was a very valuable piece in the finals, and you could easily say he was the reason they won Game 5. So for the Warriors to miss their primary defender and another offensive weapon is a pretty big blow. On the other side, the Celtics were playing without Al Horford and Rob Williams, so you could say each team was missing key players. But in my opinion, Wiggins means more to the Warriors than Horford and Williams mean to the Celtics, but I could be wrong. Now, let's get into the record situation. The Boston Celtics were currently sitting at the top of the NBA with a record of 21-5, which is the same record that the Warriors started out the season with last season. And the Warriors had a very average and unimpressive 13-13 record, sitting towards the bottom of the Western Conference. So by looking at the records alone, a viewer may think that the Celtics are easily the better team and they should be another game for the win column. Well, that isn't exactly what happened. If you have been watching the NBA recently, you would know that Jayson Tatum is playing at an MVP level, and many believe that he is the frontrunner for MVP this season. Even the NBA has Tatum as number 1 in the MVP race, and rightfully so. He's averaging 30.5 points per game, 8.2 rebounds per game, and 4.1 assists per game, while leading his team to the top of the East. The NBA wrote a small paragraph in anticipation of this finals rematch, and it said, "Expect the rematch of the 2022 NBA Finals on Saturday at Golden State to look different than what we saw back in May, because the Tatum we're seeing now isn't the same guy that ran out of gas down the stretch last season." What if I were to tell you that the new and improved Tatum was one of the main reasons the Warriors were able to once again prevail over the Celtics? Tatum became a shell of his true self again in the finals rematch. He put up a measly 18 points on 6 for 21 shooting from the field and 2 for 9 from 3. This seems like the Tatum that disappeared in the finals to me. In my opinion, it looked exactly like the finals. Jaylen Brown played fantastic basketball, dropping 31 points, 9 boards, and carried the Celtics while Tatum performed his magic act. But I don't want to put all the blame on Tatum, because it truly wasn't all his fault. The Celtics' new head coach, Joe Mazzulla, for some reason, was using the same strategy as Ime Udoka did in the finals. Let me explain. If you remember, in the finals, the Celtics decided to play drop coverage against the Warriors, which allowed a shooting-oriented team wide open threes all game. We all know how that strategy went. Ring number 4 for the greatest shooter of all time. Look at this right here. Curry has the ball and he's about to come off a high pick and roll with Looney. Right here, you can see Looney setting the screen, but take a look at where Blake Griffin is standing. He's all the way in the paint, which allows Curry to get his shot off, and he ends up getting a 4-point play. Here's another example. Curry slowly walked down, high screen, and look, neither Grant Williams or Marcus Smart step over, and they leave Curry wide open. I know that is a long shot, but come on, it's Steph Curry. Instances of this drop coverage strategy happened multiple times throughout this same game. Take a look at this right here. Curry comes off a high screen once again from Looney, and for some reason, when Curry comes off that screen, Marcus Smart, the reigning DPOY, decides to go under the screen on the greatest shooter of all time. What? Now here's one final example, but this one Curry comes off the ball and gets a handoff from Draymond. He gets the handoff from Draymond, And for some reason, Jaylen Brown goes under the screen, which allows Curry to get an open three. And of course, the greatest shooter of all time hits it. Because of this drop coverage strategy, the Warriors shooters were able to go off. Klay Thompson went off for 34 points, and Steph Curry was Steph Curry, dropping 32, 6, and 7. Jordan Poole also chipped in with 20 points, along with Kuminga off the bench, dropping 14, 5, and 3. I'm very interested in why the Celtics believe that playing drop coverage against the greatest shooter of all time is a fantastic decision. But hey, I'm not complaining. I'm always entertained by the Splash Brothers going off. Speaking of going off, the reason that the Celtics also can't stick with the Warriors is because their depth is just not as good in terms of explosive points and offense. Think about it. The Celtics' main offense comes from their two stars, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. But their role players that surround that team aren't explosive scorers. Because the Celtics' role players aren't explosive offensive players that can go up for 20s, 30s on any given night, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown have to be on their A game every single game, or it's pretty much a loss. And we saw that in the last game. Jayson Tatum didn't have his best game. He had a bad one. Jaylen Brown had a great game, but the scoring came from nobody else. And that's why it resulted in a blowout. But if you think about the Warriors had Curry go off. The Warriors had Klay go off. They had Poole chip in with 20. They had Kuminga chip in with 14 off the bench. All of those guys, like Jordan Poole and Kuminga, and I guess Klay Thompson also had a great game, not a typical game. But they all stepped up in the lack of Wiggins, who usually gives about 18 to 20 points per game. And it's because they have so many offensive weapons, they can afford to lose one, and the rest will be able to step up and fill that void. This explosive offensive depth is what makes the Warriors so hard to beat. And Draymond said it best.
But I know if we play our A game, nobody's beating us.
So, to put it all together, the Warriors were able to dismantle the Celtics because of three main reasons. Jayson Tatum, their star, did not perform well. The Celtics head coach decided to play drop coverage against the greatest shooter of all time. And the Celtics just lack offensive depth.